Welcome back to yet another recipe here at the Farm with the Red Door. I have a very exciting recipe for you today. I'm about ready to take the myth and all the hard work out of homemade manicotti. I have been making manicotti for years. I'm of Italian descent and I grew up having manicotti, and I did, just always continue to make it, and it's one of our favorite Italian meals. And I was looking on the internet, looking at other people's recipes for manicotti, and every single one of them did something that was very, very difficult to do. Now, I've heard a lot of people talk about making manicotti and saying, oh, it's so hard to make, it's so time consuming, it's so frustrating. And then I didn't quite understand what they were talking about, because it's a very, very quick meal to make. And so I went on and I did my research, and I found the reason why everybody thinks manicotti is so difficult. So I'm about ready to make manicotti one of your easiest dinners that you can make. You can make a lot of it at once. You can have them in your freezer to pull out at a moment's notice, but actually stuffing the manicotti shells is going to be very, very easy. So you're going to want to stick around for this entire tutorial because I'll reveal how easy it is in once we get to the stuffing the shells. For right now, we're going to whip together a pot of sauce real quick, get it simmering on the stove. I like this recipe for sauce. I have several different spaghetti sauce recipes, but this is the one I use when I'm making things like lasagna. I've got several different lasagnas that I make, a vegetable lasagna, a 5-cheese lasagna. I've got shells Florentine, I've got manicotti, a lot of times when I do meatball sandwiches. So I like this recipe because it's not real involved, and it can simmer for about an hour. It starts out pretty thick, so I don't have to simmer it for a long time to cook the liquid down. And it can be done in an hour, and during that time I can get everything else ready to put together, whether it's lasagna or manicotti. I'm not going to need a full hour to get my manicotti, but this is a very quick recipe. Now, if you want the printable recipe for my manicotti, go ahead and check the description below. There'll be a link for you there, as well as I'll leave you a link for my lasagna. My 5-cheese lasagna. I'll also put a link down there for my homemade marinara sauce. If you want to use the marinara sauce for the sauce in this recipe, you can do that as well. So I'll leave you all of those links down in the description below. So we're going to get busy making our sauce. Now, we purchase a whole hog once a year, and so all of our pork that's ground is unseasoned. And so what I like to do is I have a recipe for Italian sausage seasoning, and I make about 8 to 10 recipes of that, and I keep it in a mason jar, and I know the exact measurement of how much I put per pound of pork sausage. I will write that recipe in the blog post, in the printable recipe for this manicotti. I'll go ahead and I'll put in the notes if you want to make your own Italian sausage seasoning that you can know is safe, like as far as not having a lot of MSG or questionable ingredients. This is a good, safe, healthy recipe. So all you would need to do is get a pound of sausage, unflavored, just pure ground pork, and then you would make one recipe of this Italian seasoning, dump it in there, mix it up with your hands, and you have Italian sausage. So a lot of times when you go to the grocery store, and if you're trying to buy clean and organic, and you go to purchase your Italian sausage, you can get a lot cheaper of a deal on plain ground pork, because you're going to pay them to season that sausage for you, and there's a lot of ingredients that you might not want to have in your dish if you're trying to stay pure and organic. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to dump that sausage seasoning mix right in the pork, and I'm going to mix it up with my hands, and then we're going to brown this in the skillet. Because I like to put an onion, I put garlic. We're just going to put some paste, tomato paste, and tomato sauce, some additional seasoning, a little sugar, salt, and pepper. The sugar, it doesn't make it sweet, it just helps the acidity and it helps balance out the taste of this. Now, in this spaghetti sauce recipe, a lot of times I'll do half ground beef and half Italian sausage, or I'll do all ground beef or all Italian sausage. In this recipe today, I'm going to just do straight Italian sausage. We've had hamburger ground beef in several of our dishes, and so I just want to stick with Italian sausage, as well as this recipe calls for, I think it's about 1.5 pounds of meat. Now I'm only going to put 1 pound in it because in my manicotti, I do like to have meat in the sauce. I don't put meat in the filling, but I do put some meat in the sauce. So we have a little bit of meat, but I don't like to overdo the meat in my manicotti. I like a little more meat in my lasagna, but in my manicotti, I like to go light on the meat. So when you make this manicotti, you can go completely meat-free if you just want to have that tomato sauce, or you can really beef it up and add the hamburger meat and have a much more thicker meat dish, or you can do what I'm doing and cut it down to just 1 pound. So I am going to stick with 1 pound of Italian sausage, and that's it for this recipe. Just basically we're going to dump all these ingredients in the pot, set it on a simmer for an hour, and then we'll move on to preparing the filling and stuffing our manicotti shells. Now the sauce has been simmering for an hour and it is now ready. And while I was doing that, I was preparing all our ingredients to continue on. So we're going to make the filling now. Now I don't know if you noticed, but I did add 2 cups of water to that sauce as it simmered. It was beginning to really thicken up because I did have 2 cans of tomato paste. Where I do want the sauce to be thick, I don't want it to be so thick that it's not going to cook my noodles. So that is where I'm going to come in and tell you the exciting thing about making manicotti. Now, every single recipe that I saw online, they had you pre-cook your noodles. Now, picture this. Take this noodle and cook it just like you would a piece of spaghetti. It's going to be soft and it's going to be very, very difficult to fill. As you're filling it, it's going to be tearing. And as I was reading the instructions of what other people were saying how to do it, they had you cooking it and then laying it all out on towels to cool it. and then you would make your cheese filling, and you would put it in like a pastry bag with a tip on it, almost like you would be frosting a cake, and you would carefully open this up, and you would stick the frosting tip in there, and you would squeeze it, and then you would flip it over and do it, and then that way you would be able to get all the cheese inside. And they're saying, you know, if it tears, it's okay, you can kind of put it back together. And it was so involved, and it was so difficult. I thought, if that was my only experience with manicotti, I don't think I would have ever made it. It looked so difficult to fill a noodle that is soft and cooked. And that is where I think that my recipe is very unique, because I didn't find any recipes online that said that you can cook, stuff these without cooking them. Now that is why I added an extra 2 cups of water to my sauce. My sauce was very thick. It was perfect. It was the perfect texture of what you would want on your baked manicotti. But because I'm not going to pre-cook these, I added some additional water to my sauce to make it a little thinner. And that way, when I put this all together and I cook it, these are not cooked yet. That extra liquid in my sauce, it is going to bubble, because these will be in the oven for about 40 to 50 minutes, and that sauce will be bubbling, and it will cook your noodle, and they will come out perfect. I have been making manicotti for probably 40 years, and I have never pre-cooked my noodle, and they have always been absolutely perfect when they come out of the oven. So that is very exciting when you're making manicotti, because this job that used to be very difficult and something that you really didn't look forward to doing, this is now one of my quick dinners. This is a dinner that I can throw together in 10 minutes. I have spaghetti sauce. I make a big batch, and I usually keep it in the freezer, and I just take that out and defrost it. I quickly mix up about 6 ingredients. That takes, by the time I grate my cheese, under 10 minutes. I stuff my shells. That is done in under 10 minutes, and they're in the oven and ready to go. A lot of times I will do all this, and I'll pre-stuff them. Once they're stuffed, I'll line them up on a cookie sheet and flash freeze them, and then I'll take them and just pop them into gallon Ziploc bags, and I have those in my freezer. All I have to do is go and grab however many we want, 6, 8, 10, 12, or the whole batch. I take them, and I take my sauce and put some sauce in the bottom of my pan, line these up, put some more sauce over, and I stick them in my oven. They're frozen when they go in the oven, and they cook beautifully. So this truly is a fast food. This is a dinner that we have when I don't have time to cook dinner, especially if I've taken the time to pre-cook them. Years ago, when I put on a 30th birthday dinner for Hans, I made about 150 of these. I did them all in just a couple hours. I stuck them all in my freezer, and they were ready to go the day that I was actually putting on the dinner party. I was able to pull them out of the freezer and move on. So whether you're having a party or you just want it in your freezer as a quick dinner, this recipe and this technique is the way to go. Now I'll show you, I have several different sizes of pans. When I'm not freezing them to have for later, I have different ways that I serve them depending on who I'm having for dinner. So if it's just Hans and I, these are really fun. You can do 3, or let's see, you can do them this way, so you could actually fit 4. This would 4 or 5. This would feed maybe a couple, or you could do 2 of them. So that's kind of a fun way to have 2 smaller dishes. Sometimes I get tired of always serving my dinner in a 9x13 casserole pan. It's really fun to maybe change it up. I've got a pan that's this size. I don't know what this size is, but they fit that way as well. So you can get quite a bit in this pan. And then of course there's the classic 8x8 square pan. You can put them in there. And then in a 9x13, you can lay them like this, and then going this way. You can have them all lined up, and then you can do 2 and 2. So you could, you know, they'll be like this, and then you can finish it off that way. So today I'm going to see how much filling I have and what pans I want to use. But just make manicotti. Put it in your freezer and save it for a night you don't have time to cook, or go ahead and make it quickly, throw it in the oven, and you'll have dinner tonight. So if you love farm fresh food and you love recipes that are healthy and quick, and you love to learn all kinds of techniques and tips like the ones I just gave, go ahead and subscribe and click that little bell so that you'll be notified every time I post. I bring food to my channel weekly. I bring homesteading skills as well. So go ahead and subscribe and click that bell so you will not miss anything. What I like to do is I keep this little plastic tray. This is the tray that the noodles came in. And as I make the noodles, I can just set them back in the tray, and it keeps the job very, very clean. And then when I'm done with all the noodles, I can just put them into 9x13s later. So I stuff them all at once and just set them aside. So what you're doing is you're just pressing the cheese in, and I'll keep pressing it in from this end until I see that it's falling out the other end. That way I know that the noodle is completely filled all the way through, and then I will just even it off here. You don't have to get it too clean. I mean, this is all going to cook into a nice, beautiful, cheesy stuffed shell, so you don't have to worry if it's on the outside. So now this is filled, and so I'll just lay it in this tray, and it will just wait for me until I'm done. So we're going to fill all of these shells. So just put the stuffing in and push it down until you'll see once it starts coming out the bottom. There we go. I'll just even it off. I'll put a little bit more just so it's filled for sure all the way to the end. And then I'll clean the sides up and push it in there, and there you go. That is how quick and how easy this is, and they will, I promise you, they will fully cook in the oven and they will be delicious. Alright, so we're just going to finish up this project, and then we will get them into the casserole pans. So we are just about finished. We're going to spread a little of this sauce in the bottom of our casserole pan. I'm going to do these two sizes, two of this size, because it's just Hans and I want it to, you know, just be enough for us. So spread it evenly, and then just lay your manicotti right over that sauce. I'm going to do 4. That's 3 for him and 1 for me. I like to have more salad. Then you're just going to top it with sauce. And as this cooks, it is going to cook the noodles just perfectly. This recipe makes so much sauce. You'll be able to bag this up and have it over spaghetti for another quick dinner. You can use it the next time you make lasagna. Just great when you have some homemade spaghetti sauce just waiting for you in the freezer. You're going to want to cover these. Now, I don't usually like to use foil right on my food just for health reasons. So I have found that laying a piece of parchment paper and then putting the foil over it protects my food from the aluminum that's found in the foil, because aluminum is just not a very good idea to be leaching into your food. So I put a little piece of parchment paper and then cover it up with foil, and I call it good. I always put casseroles, especially stuff that has liquid like lasagna, manicotti. I put those on a cookie sheet before I put them in the oven so that if they do bubble over, all the spills will be caught and it'll be a lot easier to clean up. Now I've preheated my oven to 400 and I'm going to go pop these in, and they'll take about 40 to 50 minutes. Our manicotti is finished. What I ended up doing is I popped them in the oven at 400, and that at about the 40-minute mark I took the covering off of them and I sprinkled them with Parmesan cheese, and I put them back into the oven for another about 8 to 10 minutes. Now you know that they're finished when you can take a fork and you can poke the noodle and it's very soft. You'll know that it's done. You would test it just like if you were cooking a pasta noodle. When it's soft and chewy and you can tell that you would be able to eat that. It would be soft enough. So it cooked around 45 to 50 minutes total, and then I brought them in and they are finished and they are ready to go. So if you enjoyed this recipe, I would love it if you gave me a thumbs up, and if you have a friend who you think would benefit from learning just how easy it is to make manicotti without having to pre-cook them, go ahead and share this episode. So don't forget to subscribe, and we will see you next week.